Let's do this. The Cult of Hockey podcast by the faithful and for the faithful. I'm David Staples of the Edmonton Journal, and I'm here today with Bruce McCurdy. Hey, Bruce.
Hey David, how are you doing today?
I am doing well. How are you doing?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Another nice day out there. December's been good so far.
Yeah, it really has. Are you heading outside for a walk later today?
I sure will be.
Your
That's a
daily
hundred percent every day. I haven't missed a day in 2020.
good work. Good work.
Yeah, well, it's keeping
Uh,
me sane, man.
yes,
Actually, out there in the real world, it's so much of it's becoming a flat screen world. Get out in the three-dimensional world and breathe the air and look around. It does me good.
indeed, indeed. I like getting out as well. I often do. I'm
I know you
out
do.
just about every single day. We
I
both live.
remember when we went out to Jasper for that Oilers rookie camp in 2014 when we both got an eyeful of Leon Draisaitl and Darnell Nurse together, and Nurse dominating. Remember we went to
Yeah,
that Billy Morris Cup, was it, out there in
yeah.
Jasper, and we went for a little walk in Moline Canyon, and you left me in the dust. I think I do a little better job of keeping up with you now. I was soft and fat at that time. I was still fat, but I'm a little less soft
Uh-huh.
than I was, and so anyway,
You're the hard
that was
hard
an eye
man of the.
opener for me. Holy
Oh, was
moly,
it?
he's still going hard.
You're a hard man of the podcasting world now. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I was back. My wife and I were skiing
Mm-hmm.
recently in Jasper
Mm-hmm.
at Marmot, and
Mm-hmm.
lots of snow for this time of year. And we went to Moline Canyon, and it was absolutely fantastic in the winter. There was no one there, and there was ice in where the waterfalls are.
Oh yeah.
I highly recommend it if you're in the Jasper area. Like
Beautiful.
now, now there's more travel restrictions. I don't think they want people to travel. I'm not sure about if they want people to travel to Jasper or Banff. I don't know if that's a known or if that's not. I think that that's not being recommended. Any kind of travel that's not essential. Anyway, we were there before that, and it was absolutely magical. Bruce, speaking of magical, we've been
Mm-hmm.
watching a couple prospects,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna say um, I'm not thrilled with every prospect on the Oilers like top 20 prospect list.
Yep.
There's some that I'm pretty sure are not going to be making it in the NHL, and of course that's normal for any top 20 prospect list.
Yep.
If you can get like five of those guys to be NHL players, I think you're
100%.
you're really doing well. I just have no doubt there's going to be five guys off the Oilers top five prospect list who are NHL players. And some of them, it's just really interesting to see who are the what I would call the players, like the guys who get out there and want to make hockey plays. And we're going to talk about some of those players. One of them, Carter Savoy, who is off
Mm-hmm.
to kind of a near miracle start in his college career at the University of Denver. We're going to talk about Philip Brober, who is a man with many pronunciations of his name, even in Sweden, we
Apparently.
understand now. We'll talk about Raphael Lavoie, who is playing in Sweden in the second division. We'll talk about Ryan McLeod in Switzerland. So those are the prospects I think we're going to deal with today. We haven't seen Dylan Holloway because, of course, he's in
Right.
the quarantine for 3 weeks.
For almost a month. Yeah,
And
just brutal.
yeah, well, and his team has also had quarantine
Yeah.
issues. He left it, and they played a lot fewer games than might have been expected. We'll talk about the start of the NHL season, and Kurt Levens had a post where
Mm-hmm.
he talked about maybe the Oilers having a wee bit of an advantage. Bruce, let's start digging in. There's the latest news. There's been some positive news about the NHL season. Essentially, to sum it up quickly, the owners have been asking for some concessions. It looks like they backed off that in terms of this year. They're probably going to stick with the deal that was struck last spring, which means the players get a little bit more money now, but down the road, a different group of players will get less money, and we'll have a flatter cap for a longer period of time.
Right.
Um, it looks like the owners have accepted that, and the latest word is I heard December 28th for start of training camp for teams that haven't played in a long, long time. Early January 3rd, I believe, for the other teams
Mm-hmm.
starting up. and play commencing actual, I'm not sure if it's exhibition games or regular season games, in a 56 game season.
No exhibition games.
No exhibition games, starting on the mid-January, 56 games. So that's great. I hope they can pull that off. What we're seeing right now in Europe and at the World Junior Tournament is lots of cancellations, lots of delays because of players getting COVID and team staff, mainly players getting COVID. And it's just interrupted. It's postponed the Finnish league. There's been Swedish teams that have been delayed. Of course, Sweden is famously more open to continuing on with regular life during the pandemic period. But even there's been players missing games. I think some teams have also missed games, if I'm not mistaken. So there's been huge gaps in the Swiss league schedule. Germany's delayed. Everyone's delayed. So we'll see how successful the NHL is. And coming into all this is the vaccine,
right,
which in a private system in the United States, I don't know what their system, like I know they have a private healthcare system. I don't know in terms of the vaccine, if people with more money in the United States will be getting vaccinated or not. That could also have an impact with the players getting vaccinated fairly early on, which would solve some problems and maybe getting crowds back. So that's kind of a summation of the news. What's your take on the return of NHL hockey?
Well, I mean, it's good that they at least have a plan in place. I mean, it really was unseemly when it looked like the two sides were battling over money. Uh, Billionaires against millionaires, as some folks put it. Of course, many of them millionaires are actually thousandaires. I mean, there's a relatively minority of players that are making the big money, and a whole lot of sort of uh, guys on the fringes. Uh, so, anyways, they did make that deal just last June, I think it was, that they agreed to the terms, and then the owners came back with some asks, and then the players' union came back with an ask or two of their own. I understand they asked that the league raise the salary cap a little bit to sort of unfreeze some of the teams and open the market a little bit for some of the guys that are looking for work. And the owners didn't like that, and they've just agreed to shelve the whole thing and go ahead. And of course, all that's, I mean, it's agreed to at the very top level, but the NHL players have to agree to it, at least the executive of the Players Association, the representatives of all the teams have to agree to it, and the owners, the board of governors have to agree to it. And with a two-thirds majority to approve the proposed divisional realignment. So there's word out there that at least a half dozen and perhaps closer to 10 or 12 owners are not that happy. So that vote could be an interesting time. We have uh, the notorious Jeremy Jacobs of Boston Bruins apparently among those is not very happy with the terms of the memorandum of understanding, and so there may be some resistance on that front. But that's billionaires fighting billionaires, and that's even more unpalatable for the working stiffs that just want to see some hockey play. The bigger news, of course, as you say, is they're doing this in an environment where COVID is exploding
Yeah.
around the world. And we have, here in Alberta, a fairly desperate situation where our own provincial government finally put in all province mask mandate and a 28-day lockdown right through the Christmas season. Uh, that's how rough things are going here. And of course, here, Edmonton, which had the super safe bubble for the NHL playoffs, now has the task of providing another super safe bubble for the World Juniors. And that's being done, in a situation where the virus is much more out of control, and the teams that are coming in. I mean, we have four teams that have declared multiple players medically ineligible to play. I think there was two from Germany, three from the United States, four from Sweden, plus three coaches, and five out of the Team Canada camp that were declared unable to play, including Matthew Robertson of Edmonton Oil Kings, which is unfortunate. He was a favorite to make the team, and unfortunately, it's out for him for reasons completely beyond his. So the World Juniors, I mean, it's nip and tuck, man. I mean, we're talking that's still over 2 weeks away before they begin, and before the teams even get into the bubble, they're facing problems in multiple locations. And I mean, even the IIHF itself, Rene Faisal, the head honcho of International Ice Hockey Federation, he's got COVID. So
That was the
yeah,
kicker. That
yeah,
was the
yeah,
kicker, wasn't it, Bruce? Like when I
yeah,
read that, I thought, oh man,
man.
they really do have. Who's got troubles?
Virus 5, hockey 0, it seems like at this moment in time. So I have, that's casting a big shadow over the upcoming World Junior. And frankly, it casts the same shadow over the return of the NHL. How are they going to be able to do it if the COVID numbers continue to spiral? So it's good they have a plan. And I suppose the plan would have some flexibility as to start date and so on. But at least they're through phase one of the squabbling among themselves and back on the track of let's get this going as soon as we possibly can, and that's good news.
Bruce, here are some of the players that are still out there to be signed. Mikhail Granland, who had 30 points in 63 games last year. Mike Hoffman, 59 points in 69 games. He still hasn't signed. The veteran defenseman Andy Green, he's 37 now, but he's always been a good player.
Mm-hmm.
Sami Vatanen, probably like a low end, like second pairing D man. Carl Soderberg, checking center, 35 points in 70 games last year. Travis Hamonic, who was rumored only a few years ago to be a target for the Edmonton Oilers in a Taylor Hall trade.
Huh.
Mike Grabner, who had a weak year last season after being strong previous to that. Connor Sheary, Eric Halla, 24 points in 48 games. He's been viewed as a kind of a top end third line center. Colin Wilson's out there. So Matt Martin, checking winger. So there's some players that this year still that's 10 players who are useful NHL players who are still not, and some of them are like Hoffman's a top line player probably on a lot of teams, and he's still not signed. So there's some bargains out there. I don't see the Oilers moving on any of those players, but you never know. I think Dominic Cahoon was the cherry on top of the Oilers offseason. Was quite some cherry. And Bruce, when you say billionaires versus millionaires, it's funny. Like the players are. Like we think of the players as the players united, but there's players in there who are on like they're in the $70 million, $60 million career earnings range. Lots of guys at 20, 30, $40 million. This is a pile of money. But then there's this whole group of players, like you say, who are, maybe a third of the players who are working on their, their first million or their second or their third, like if that. And so, when you're at the pinnacle of this profession, and this is your chance to make money for a lifetime at your chosen profession, that's not a lot of money. So they're quite in some ways they're quite a divided group of people with all kinds of different interests, but they all wanted to get. And I can imagine the people who are at the bottom of the pyramid, they want the money now. Like their career is short, whatever money they can make. And I think so. In some ways, it was a healthy thing, like in terms of equity, because the people at the very bottom of that very steep pyramid, in the NHL level, maybe won out and are going to get paid this year. Bruce, let's move on and let's talk about Carter Savoy. Let's just start out with a quote from his coach at the University of Denver. Carter Savoy is, of course, the Oilers' fourth round pick from this year. It might one day be viewed as the biggest trade of the Ken Holland made this past year, where he seems like kind of a small draft day move, where he moved the 76th pick overall in the draft for the 100th pick and the 126th pick, and it just seemed like, okay, you're cashing in a third round pick for 2 fourth-round picks. And this is the third-round pick that might have gone to the Calgary Flames in the Lucic deal, but the Oilers chose to hold. But the Oilers, who knows, maybe this draft was just exceptionally deep, and that's what everybody was saying. But it looks like the Oilers got 2 absolutely fantastic forward prospects in Carter Savoy and Tyler Tullio. Is that right? Tullio?
Yes.
Tyler Tullio. And Carter Savoy is off to this amazing start. He's 18 years old. He's playing in one of the top U.S. hockey programs at the University of Denver. And he has got 6 points in his first 4 games. I think 5 of them are goals. If I'm not
goals,
5 of them. It's as you were saying, it's the first time in history that a freshman has gotten goals in his first. Is it now the first 4 games
for that program? But yeah, that's a very storied, long-standing program at University of Denver.
That's right. And here's what his coach David Carl has said about him in the Denver Post, about him and Michael Benning, who also played on the same AGHL team. They were teammates. And Michael Benning, what's his relation to Matt?
Brother.
His brother. Okay.
Son of Brian, nephew of Jim. He's got hockey bloodlines. They're all D-men. All the Bennings are D-men.
He's off to a good start too, and this is what their coach David Carl says about both these 2 young players from the Edmonton area. They've got ice in their veins. They love the game of hockey. They're gamers. They want to be on the ice in big moments. They know when to move the puck, where to be on the ice offensive. It's really impressive. And it gives our bench, our team, a lot of confidence when they're out there. So this is a coach in a high-level university college program talking about a freshman player, 18-year-old freshman that the Oilers have drafted. Bruce, this is extremely, extremely encouraging in terms of Carter Savoy's development. And both you and I have now I watched a couple games from the HL last year, and I've watched his most recent games, and then you watched his first 3 games. Yep. What did you think of the player in the games you watched?
He's still learning. He's he's not a dominant player at that level yet, but I mean he's 18 years old, and I believe the youngest player on the team by a couple of weeks younger than Michael Benning, his friend and teammate. But his offensive gifts are pretty impressive. He's got a great shot. One of the things I did was I went back and I looked at the videos of the goals that were on the scouting service that we subscribed to that showed a bunch of his AJHL goals, and he's got a rocket, but he's also got a gift for knowing when to shoot. He's got that shooter's mentality of holding the puck for the extra beat or half beat while he's moving on the ice, changing his shooting angle, and as soon as he senses the goalie hasn't quite squared up with him, boom, short side. Especially he loves short side, but short side, far side, he can plug a puck-sized hole from 25 feet with. I mean, obviously these are goal videos, so you don't see the 100% of shots that don't go in, but you do see all the ones that do. But I mean, I saw enough there to say this guy is a real sniper. There's a big level of deception to his game. You don't really know what he's going to do, and he has a bag of tricks, of which moving the puck, holding the puck, shooting quickly. He using the screens, using his teammates for deflections. Like he's got he's got some real offensive instincts that as an old goalie, I see some of the things, oh man, that'd be tough to get in the way of that. And it would be, so that's clearly his gift, and the rest of his game. I mean, if you're going to have one aspect of your game that you have a plus skill, I mean, putting the puck in the net has got to be number 1 on that list, for a forward at least. And hopefully learn and build the game around him. He's got to get better as a skater. But guess what? He's an 18-year-old player. All 18-year-old players have to get better as a skater. That's a given. And he's not a poor skater. I would call him average. And I think he's going to have to up the physicality of his game a little bit, just a little bit of the give and take. But he's a feisty little guy, and he's uh, uh, early showing is all I can say. Very, very promising. I mean, Denver's got 10 goals through 4 games, playing very tough games. I mean, they're ranked number 4 in the U.S., and 3 of their first four games have been against teams ranked ahead of them in the national rankings.
Ooh.
And so they've been all 1-goal games. Denver scored 10 goals, and 18-year-old Carter Savoy has 5 of the 10 goals.
What did you think? So, what did you think of his hustle? Because one of the criticisms, the reason he went 100th overall and not 27th overall or 10th overall, because his shot was rated as one of the best in the draft. Is people had questions about his hustle in the AJHL. That was a common comment from multiple people who viewed him and many other players. What did you think when you were watching him?
I think he's pretty pumped to be out there and playing, so it's not an issue yet, and hopefully it just won't be an issue. I think there's been some criticism about his overall commitment to physical fitness, and I heard a school of thought that he might be best served by spending some time away from mom's home cooking. Well, he's no longer, I mean, he was living in St. Albert, playing in Sherwood Park the last 2 years. Well, now he's playing in Denver, so guess what? He's not living in St. Albert. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, sometimes you get these guys, and it's not until they're drafted and they have the proper direction from a team and from a player development personnel and so on, not to mention, their coaching and so on as they go up the ranks in hockey, that put more emphasis on some of these little details that they have to do, off the ice as well as on, to prepare themselves for the vigors of a professional career. And hopefully he's already taken that to heart. I mean, I don't see anything so far that you could call any sort of a negative sign. I mean, he's years away, but the Oilers might have a real diamond in the rough there.
So I saw his last game where he scored the winning goal with 2 minutes left. He takes a pass, he's crossing in over. There's a neutral zone play. They're passing around the neutral zone a little bit. He crosses the blue line, gets a pass, bursts through the defensive coverage, and right at the dot, which isn't necessarily a great place to shoot, unless you're Carter Savoy. He just fired a shot from the dot right over the goalie's shoulder post, far post. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful shot. So Bruce, I only saw the one game, but the player that I saw was markedly better than the player I saw last year in the AJHL in the few games I saw there. Just the skating looked better, and the hustle, his involvement in the game was way higher. And as you say, he's probably excited to be there. Maybe he's read those criticisms, and maybe he's an 18-year-old kid who just needed to be told the truth by a number of different people. Like you gotta work harder on defense. This game, I saw him come back hard on a back check, dive into the defensive slot to block a pass. I didn't see any evidence of a player out there who wasn't hustling hard. And the thing I love about his game, he's such a heads-up player. He's able to get the puck quickly off the boards onto his stick and make a pass, which is a huge skill in hockey. You listen to Adam Oates talk about that kind of thing. The elite players all have this ability to get those hard bouncing wobbly pucks off the boards, quickly off the boards. And he did this a couple times in the game where he's kicking it off his skates to his stick, taking it backhand to forehand, and then making a quick pass. And because his head's up as he's doing those things, he's able to spot the player he's going to pass to and hit that player. I'm watching him all game, and I'm just wondering, like, how does he just constantly seems to make the right play with the puck when he gets the puck, and he doesn't carry the puck a ton, although he did. He was able to rush the puck a few times. He has enough speed to do that. He's one of those players who seems to get faster with the puck on his stick, but he just is constantly looking around when he has the puck and doesn't have the puck. His eyes are up, and it's hard not to be a little bit excited about him right now because as a fourth round draft pick, I mean, if someone told me, here's the guy that the Oilers took 15th overall, right in this last draft instead of Dylan Holloway. If I was watching
Mhm.
right now based on that game that I saw, it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Um, he's killing it at
He's
college
skilled,
hockey,
eh?
and all the skills are there. He's a dynamite player. He shoots left,
Mm-hmm.
so we'll just have to see. Like, so they're going to temper all this now.
Right.
4 college games, a player who was passed over in the first 3 rounds of the draft, passed over repeatedly by teams for a reason. They're not dummies, for a reason, and we'll see how this goes. But it's good for him. Good start.
One caveat: he's doing almost all of his damage, except for his very first goal, is all done on the power play.
Yes.
His last 5 points and 4 goals have been all power play goals, and they're not shy about calling penalties in that loop. There's a
Yeah.
lot of power plays in the 3 games that I watched. And of course, he's not on the penalty kill side of it, but they put him right out on the first power play unit, playing the left point, same position he played in Sherwood Park, with Michael Benning on the right point. And his game on the left point, man, he's just subtle. He just kind of drifts. He's got the puck and he just drifts into the soft ice and he holds the puck. And once he gets inside the face-off circle, left or right, but especially the left face-off circle, he loves to shoot from there, and he can beat goalies from there. At least the goalies of the level that he's been playing to this point. And that's kind of a favorite play. Hold the puck, kind of drift into shooting position, bam, and the bam aspect is first rate. Like he really does have a wicked accurate shot.
I would say he has the potential to be an NHL player if he can do one thing. This is one of my favorite hockey stories. It's when I first saw Mike Bossy live. Mike Bossy, Brian Trottier, and Clark Gillies, and I've told this story a few times, but I am going to tell it again here.
Okay.
I had been watching. My dad had seasons tickets for the early Oilers, and we went to lots of WHA games. So I'd been to professional hockey games for probably a decade before I saw Mike Bossy. And
Right.
I'd seen Mike Bossy and Gillies and Trottier on TV, but this would be in 81 or 82, the first time I saw them live. And when they lost the puck and it went back to their end of the ice, they all turned on a dime, like so fast. And they just hustled so hard back. I'd never seen, in all my years of watching pro hockey live, I'd never seen players back check that hard. And this was the best offensive line probably in the NHL at that time, with Gretzky and Curry challenging them,
Mm-hmm.
or better than them. So it's maybe the second best line, the Islanders. I'd never seen in my life a line back check so hard and so furiously and diligently as that top line for the New York Islanders. And that was Mike Bossy. If
Mm-hmm.
Mike Bossy needed to do that to be in the NHL and to succeed in the NHL, if Carter Savoy can do that, if he can get into his head that no one will ever go back harder and more ferociously on the back check than Carter Savoy, he can be an NHL hockey player. If he just makes up his mind, if that one thing is because I think the offensive skills, it looks like, are going to be there or
Mm-hmm.
possibly be there. But if he can get that in his head to be that kind of defensive hockey player, he can make it, I think. And I would say the same. I'm going to segue this to Ryan McLeod, who I'm watching in
Right.
the Swiss League. That's what's stopping him right now, I personally believe, from making the move to the NHL. He's got to up his defensive intensity. He's got to be that player who makes up his mind. No one is going to get back faster and harder and more ferociously on the check than Ryan McLeod, and cover the defensive slot better than me. If he makes up his mind to do that, because again, on the big ice, what I'm seeing, he's on a little bit of a point tear right now. He's got 3 points in 2 games. He's fast and he's big. He's 6'3", 200 pounds. He's one of the fastest players, if not the fastest player on the ice. His offensive skills, though, are just okay. He's not at that level. He doesn't have that brilliant ability at this level to make a play out of nothing, to always make the right play, to see things other players don't see, to create chances when they're not there. He's good at it, but he's not elite at it. And I don't know if that's ever going to come. But because of his size and his skill, he's got some offensive talent to make it as an NHLer. But again, what I need to see from him, there's something actually missing from his game. And to me, it's that kind of defensive intensity where he just comes back hard again and again and again, every single shift, and makes the right, and then thinks when he gets back, okay, who's the danger man? Who do I cover as the center to help out these defensemen so we don't get scored upon? So that's my Ryan McLeod take. Have you seen him? You've seen him
I
a couple
have.
times. What's your
People
thought?
project him as a 3C, and I think that lines up fairly well with the type of offense that he's shown, which is, relatively sporadic. I don't see him as a top six level scorer, 3C or potentially winger.
Yeah,
But if you're going to play 3C and succeed, you got to have that defensive intensity. And that, I mean, it helps players on any line, as you pointed out about Mike Bossy, or I'll point out about the classic 3C Patrice Bergeron, except for he's a 1C because he's so good
yeah,
going both ways, but the guy you would cast into that defensive center role, well, he's got to bring that defensive intensity. And McLeod, this has been a pretty constant criticism of the guy since even before Edmonton drafted him. It was in the draft reports that he is a little bit of a perimeter player, and perimeter player, like that has limitations offensively, but also defensively. You got to be on the right side of your man. And, the tough areas of the ice. They talk about going to the dirty areas. Well, the defensive zone, the dirty area is inside the guy that you're covering, between him and the goalie, not reaching
yeah.
in from behind, but actually, being in position to impede him. And that's some can be some pretty rough going doing that, and you have to commit to it. And he's got a very enticing set of skills, as you say. His size and speed, that combination is always going to grab one's attention. But the application of that is still a work in progress.
And I would rank another player I just watched, and I saw him good in a game, Raphael Lavoie, playing in Sweden. So the McLeod's, being a perimeter player is an issue for him. Like it's a fair criticism, and he's got to take it to heart if he wants to be an NHL player. And it's again going to make the difference between him making maybe $1 or $2 million as a professional player over the years, because he'll stick with it. He can play in the Swiss League, and making maybe $20 or $30 million. That could be the difference with the habits that he forms as a player. And what I'm seeing with Lavoie is, like, when you think about a player who's not a perimeter player, Raphael Lavoie is not a perimeter player. He gets what I love about this player is he's this great big guy, and he's listed as 6'3", 205. I think he's got to be taller than 6'3", because he just towers over everybody on the ice.
Yeah.
And when he gets the puck, Bruce, he takes it to the net, like no holds barred. He loves to get that puck and power it to the net any way he can. And when he gets there, he's got a hell of a shot as well. So this is a huge player with that great shot and that real super drive. And to me, he's ripping it up. He's got 7 points in his last 5 games in the Allsvenskan, which is a Swedish league, which is below the level of it's somewhere between major junior hockey and the AHL. And so it's not the best league, but he's in the top 20 scoring, and he's on a hot streak right now. He's doing well. I'm really curious to see how he does when he gets to the AHL, and if he can continue this level of really first line play, essentially, for a winger, and successful first line play. But again, I'm seeing NHL qualities. The shot, the size, his skating isn't great, but the shot, the size, and the absolute ferocious determination when he gets that puck to make an offensive play, to get to the net and get a goal. And that was really impressive with Raphael Lavoie. Good for him. And I can see why. And so this is why, when I re-rank the players, I don't know if I had him ahead of McLeod last time, but he will definitely be ahead of McLeod this time, because he's got that inside power game, which is, I think, still really crucial to success in the NHL.
Yeah, he's not a Ryan McLeod caliber skater. He doesn't stink as a skater though. Like
No, no.
he and the games that I watch of him, he does keep his feet moving. I mean, often you get a criticism of these bigger players, and you look and they're kind of drifting around two-footed skating a lot.
Yeah.
But I thought when I watched him, he was consistently moving his feet and moving it to good effect. Like he sort of knew where he was going and had a reason for going there. And he's more gifted as an offensive player, but I didn't see him as taking shortcuts. And even though he plays on a pretty bad team, I didn't get the sense that he was only looking to pad his own numbers and not take care of things at the other end. I mean, the defensive record isn't good, but the whole team's defensive record isn't good. Uh, but offensively, he's shown plenty, and he's got a shot that'll surprise and beat goalies. And you wonder at what level are the goalies too good that that's going to stop happening. And my fear is that level is the NHL. But
Yeah.
like he scored a few where you thought, how'd that get through the goalie? But he finds a hole, or he surprises them with the release point or what have you. And some of those are translatable skills, at least until you get playing those goalies that don't leave holes anywhere. And so he's a very interesting prospect. And I mean, he just turned 20 years old, and he's playing his first pro season, and he made that transition, to my mind, very well indeed.
And this is what you want to see, like honestly, from a
Hmm.
if a guy is going to ever translate into a top line forward in the NHL,
Hmm.
you need to see almost always you need to see the scoring just continue to translate like from league to league to league. Like there's never when they
Right.
make the jump, and there's hardly ever there's exceptions to this, but there's hardly ever that gap where for a couple of years they don't score much, like they move to the AHL and then they don't score much, and then they become a top line top six player in the NHL. You can find examples of that, but they're few and far
Right.
between. So this is a very good sign for both uh, early indicators, and I want to stress that for both
Yes.
Lavoie and Savoy, who maybe one day will be on the same line
I want to
on the
see
Edmonton.
that. I want to see Rod Phillips come out of retirement to call a game with that line of Savoy and Lavoie.
Okay, who else do we? Oh, okay, Philip Brober. So in
Mm,
Sweden, Bruce, we got a very interesting YouTube commentator from
yes.
Sweden who was telling us that in like so we've been hearing that in Sweden nobody's I can say this with confidence. None of the announcers call him Philip Broberg as we
No.
call him. Not one calls him Philip
Mhm.
Broberg. But there is apparently in the different regions of Sweden there's different pronunciations. Do you remember what they were?
Yeah, well, Broberg was in the north, and Broberg was at some central Sweden, and then there was in southern Sweden. It was more of a silent G that they don't pronounce at all. But
Brober.
as I recall, is how he differentiated. So anyway, the fact being that Sweden is a it's a sizable country, and it's a long country, in latitude, and there are different, I don't know,
Accents.
dialects, accents within the country, and so they would approach how they pronounce that type of name. And there's tons and tons of bergs in Sweden. So we got Berglands and Lundbergs. It's I'm not quite sure how they put those names together over there, but all the guys with the BERG, you typically hear in the games I've been listening to Barry. So.
Barry. That's what
Mhm.
I hear from all. I think I'm not sure if I'm. No, we're hearing different announcers because we're watching
Hmm.
different players, and it's all. I'm
Right.
always hearing Barry actually. Like so, Broberry is and Barry Lund is
Hmm.
the common pronunciation. So, out of respect for the player, I think it's you
Hmm.
should try to pronounce the name as they would pronounce it. I don't think that's asking too much of anyone. So, it's not Valery Karlamov, it's
Right.
Harlamov,
Hmm.
and so over the
Do your
years
best.
we do
And
our
it's
best.
not and it's not Guy Hebert, it's Guy Hebert. I mean, we're used to doing that for French Canadian players. So the pushback that we get on trying to do the same, uh, trying at least to do justice to some of these European pronunciations, I don't buy it. I think you have to do your best
I
to
think so too. Yeah, and I think the Russians we've gotten used to try to pronounce their name correctly, right? I think
try to.
that's more no, instead of Fetizov, it's Fetizov, like
Yeah.
so. instead of Burr, it's Bure. Like, you know, where we
Pure.
for a long time, we've been at it. And my theory, Bruce, on this is that the Swedes are so damn polite that they've
Mhm.
never complained. Like everyone else has probably made a bit of a stink about us mispronouncing their names, but the Swedes are so polite that we've been butchering their names for decades, and they just whatever, like they just suck it up. So maybe that's good for the Swedes. But all right, so Philip Brober, you saw him
Mhm.
play his most recent game. So Bruce, you gave him a grade of 5.
Mhm.
He's having a little trouble with his plus minus over there. What is he
Oh,
now? Minus? He's
minus
minus.
9 on the season,
Yeah.
and he started off through 4 games. He was plus 3, and since game number 4, he's played 19 games, and he has had a plus in 0 of the 19 games. He's either been even or he's been minus, and he's been minus enough times to put up a gross minus 12 over the 19 games. And I mean, this is probably what 15, 17 minutes a night of 5 on 5. And it's not like he's getting clobbered on empty net goals against or shorties against, or, the standard criticisms of plus minus. He's playing most of the time at 5 on 5. And too often, his part of the game, his team actually loses that portion of the game. This is a team that's, it's a competitive team. They're plus 1 on the season. I don't know the breakdown of even strength goals in there, but it's probably pretty close to even. But in Philip Broberg's part of the game, Skellefteå has been losing that part, and they've been, winning with other players on the ice and breaking even overall. But it's over 2 months ago since he had a plus game. I mean, he's been on the ice for goals, but like in this game, he was on the ice for 1 for, 1 against. He made a nice play on the goal, but he was one of the culprits on the goal against, and as a result, they just broke even in this part of the game, and that's been a best case scenario for this player for a little bit too long for my liking. It's not like it's a week where he's had a goaltending disasters behind him, or uh, it's been an extended period where he's just sort of struggling to keep his head above water.
What it says to me, Bruce, is he's in the right place. Like he shouldn't like this thought taking the Oilers this year that has floated out there. Like I
Not
just
gonna
forget it. Like to me, forget it. Like he's in the exact right spot. He's moved from playing about 14, 15 minutes a game to about 19, 20 minutes a game. He's there's just tons of stuff to really like about his game, but there's also like yeah, anyone watching him would have to say like he's got some things to work on.
Yep.
And some of it is like cutting out passes into the slot in the defensive
Hmm.
zone. Like he's really great at shutting down the play in the neutral zone, backing up as a defenseman because his ability to go forwards to backwards to forwards to backwards, his long reach, his big size, 6'3", whatever he is, 205. Like he's big and he's fast, he's agile. Like he's great, I think, at one-on-one defending. Generally speaking, although he still gets beat now and then there as well. But I would say that's a strength. But sometimes the corner battles, he'll still lose those, and defensive reads in the defensive zone, he might not make completely correctly all the time. So he's in the exact right spot for his hockey development. And I think the latest word out of the Oilers camp, I think Mark Spector mentioned that Ken Holland had said they might not even bring him over for training camp, although he'll be here.
Right.
But he'll be here. But I think they're seeing him as maybe they'll just send him. He'll just go back to Sweden and play out the rest of the year there because I think that's where he belongs right now. It's a good place for him. Really encouraging thing. I saw him in 2 games where he was -4 and he made
Hmm.
mistakes on I think 2 or 3 of the 4 goals, where he was a culprit, as we call
Right.
them, at the cult of hockey. Players who make major mistakes on goals and grade A chances against. He was a culprit in many sequences of pain. But Bruce, I was laughed with. I just he when he has the puck in the
Hmm.
he's getting more confident right now with the puck. I'm noticing he's
Hmm.
he's moving his feet, he's rushing it, and he is so damn fast. He's such a great skater, and he's trying to make plays. And the player, the ceiling, like the absolute ceiling, the Hall of Fame ceiling, which we sometimes like to invoke with players. I'm as bad as anyone for that. The player that he was reminding me of, like the class of player, the school that he's from, he doesn't have to me, and he won't. I'm not gonna see like the top, like really top end offensive ability that you'll see like in an Eric Carlson or a Paul Coffey or a Bobby. I don't think we're ever gonna see that from
Right.
Broberry. I don't think But Sir Savard was the player that came to my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Just the way he rags the puck, moves with the puck. He doesn't do the Savardian spinorama yet.
Yeah.
He tends to spin in the other direction, but he will do his own spinorama and rag that puck, move the puck, control the puck. He's effortless skating for a man that size, a big guy like that. His growing confidence with the puck, I was just really impressed. And that's the player that started, that's the kind of class or style of play that came to mind, was a Serge Savard kind of player. And there's lesser players of that same mold who have made it in the NHL, and we'll see where he ends up. But that's who I was thinking.
Yeah, well, Serge Savard, I mean, he's on my short list of greatest defensemen I've seen in my lifetime. But I don't think we got to see Serge as great as he could have been. I mean, he won the Conn Smythe Trophy in 1969, age 21. And he was a great skater at that time. And then the following season, he broke his leg. And the season following that, he broke his leg again, or the other leg. I can't remember which, but he suffered broken legs 2 years in a row. And he did recover from that and came back for a long, storied, successful career, Hall of Fame career. And he was a dominant player, but it wasn't dominant through his speed. It was through, the other aspects of his very broad-based game, which included some offense, especially when the Habs really needed a goal. That's when Savard was dangerous, and he was, just a superb player. But to say Brober reminds me of Savard, well, I don't quite see it, but I do, and there are some similarities, including the towering size and of a young Serge Savard. Yeah, that's a little bit more reasonable, and let's hope Brober doesn't suffer the same sort of physical insults that Serge did.
He sure goes hard to the net, Broberg, and you could see he's rushes recklessly with reckless abandon at the net often, and you could see him. Hopefully, it never happens, but you could see him getting hurt on that kind of play. McDavid certainly has, and Broberg goes for that kind of. He goes for it now and then, so we'll see. But anyway,
he spent in this game in the second period. He was great. He kept getting the puck at the point and making very good plays with. He kept rushing into the zone and actually making successful zone entries. But the other parts of the game, like when he did try and rush the puck up the ice, Brenus, the team that they were playing against, they seemed to have a game plan to funnel him to the outside and then challenge him physically. And they knocked him down 2 or 3 times, and the play went the other way. And, one time, literally, he was lying in the corner, the very furthest part of the ice from his own net, while the play went the other way. Or another time, he had a teammate that was in a puck battle along the boards inside the offensive blue line, and he skated to give the guy a brief passing receiving option, but the guy didn't actually have the puck to make that play. And then when he lost the puck, Brober was lost. He was going the wrong way, and the puck was, skedaddling the other way, and he had to turn around. He was about the 4th guy of 5 to get back into his zone that time. So some of that's just decision making, knowing when to get rid of the puck, or you got to keep your feet out there. And the serious criticism I had of this game, not necessarily his game, but this game, was what I saw as soft defensive coverage. I didn't really engage when the other team had the puck, and there was a man near him in the slot, but he didn't seem to have any particular coverage in mind. He wasn't hard on the guy's stick. He wasn't, have a shoulder in his chest. He was just kind of floating 2 or 3 or 4 feet away, and not really able to prevent passes or shots from his man. And I think he needs to show a lot more commitment on the defensive side of the puck than I saw in this particular game.
Yeah, so a young defenseman with some defensive growing pains, right? So, and the Savard comparison, I'm like,
flash.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully that doesn't happen at the NHL level. That's the worst idea on earth, to have the growing pains happen at the NHL level for a young D-man. So
Vladislav Smeed says hi.
Yeah. Oh God, how many young defensemen of the Oilers did we see that with, Bruce, where they were rushed? Justin Schultz is the poster boy for that horrendous developmental model.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, because
So
if the World Junior goes through and he's in town just as training camp starts, I wouldn't mind seeing him get a few days with the team, but I don't really care if he does or doesn't. I think his future is in Sweden for the rest of this season, and the fact that he did get that bonus training camp in July, you know, this would be, just a cherry on top of that. But he's already got that experience. So to get more of it, be nice to have a few days. But honestly, I don't see a situation where he's on the taxi squad even for the year to come. He needs to play games and grow his game. And the best place for that is Kalaftia.
I've heard it called Kaleftia. I heard like a hard K for
Yeah.
Kaleftia from one of the announcers. Um, let's just quickly, Bruce. My power
Mhm.
is running out of my
Oh,
computer here. I'm at
can't have
4%,
that.
but
Ooh,
so when I get to 1%, I'll cut
yeah.
in and say we got it. We'll just. But
Okay.
uh,
Who we
so
got left?
We got Kurt Levens.
Oh,
Just a quick thing. Kurt was writing about the coming financial crunch in the NHL, where with a flat cap, which is what we're going to see for years to come. But he also sees a lot of the teams like you can spend to the ceiling of the cap, or you're allowed to spend to the floor of the cap in the
hmm,
NHL. And he sees a lot of owners with financial troubles and also getting troubles with getting fans in the stands. And he sees a lot of teams starting to spend closer to the floor than to the ceiling. And
hmm.
his suggestion seemed to be that he felt the Oilers would avoid that problem because of Cates' diversified business portfolio.
Okay.
And
Hope he's right.
hope he's right. And maybe fans in Edmonton, I hope he's right about that. I mean, we have a situation, we're going to have a situation in Edmonton, I fear, like the 80s, where the 80s were an extremely difficult financial era for Edmonton. And but nonetheless, we'll have a really good team. And the
Mhm.
owners managed to sell tickets through the 80s. I don't know what's going to happen though, because the tickets are
Oh.
so much more expensive, I think,
Hmm.
relatively compared to the 80s.
Hmm.
I would like to compare it to a movie ticket, what a movie ticket cost then and a hockey ticket in the 80s. Maybe I'll do a post on that. That might be interesting. Like find some comparable things to go to. Entertainment events because the Oiler tickets are so expensive. And I just fear that
Hmm.
the Oilers might not be able to sell. But Kurt was thinking it's going to turn out okay, and the Oilers are going to be one of these high cap teams, and there's going to be lots of players that these high cap teams are going to be able to get
Right.
that they might have. Um, and it might be easier to keep. More importantly, with all of these prospects, both on defense and now on the wing bubbling up, might be able to keep. So just in 30 seconds, Bruce, I'm at 2%. What's your thought on this issue?
My thought is that the Seattle Kraken are in wonderful position to come
Yes.
in and clean up on the good marketable affordable players market, just like Vegas Golden Knights did. And wouldn't you know, the NHL finally gives expansion teams a fair shake and then sticks both of them in Edmonton's division. Uh, anyway, that so Kurt's point partly was that not only is it spending high to the cap, but teams that aren't committed already to long-term contracts that have a little bit of space that they can fill with some of these players that are best positioned. And I'm not sure that's the Oilers, although that's changing somewhat in 2021. They actually have some sizable contracts that are expiring this year compared to last year. But so they'll have certainly a little bit more breathing room. But if I agree with him that there's going to be a gap between spending to the floor and spending to the ceiling, you'd want to be on the latter side of that to compete in the brave new NHL.
It makes me wonder what will happen with the Nugent Hopkins and Nurse contracts, right? Like two players coming up to UFA years. Like, what are the implications of this cap system for those two deals, which are big deals? And do you want to go as high as you might have thought in the past on them or not? So anyway, we'll leave that as a thought for everyone to
Right.
ponder on, and maybe we'll deal with it a little more depth. So Bruce, thanks for talking today.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
And in the meantime, and in between times, this has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast.
Save it fast.